Chapter 1: The Awakening of the Nest. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a canvas of deep purples and blues that stretched across the sky. Inside the Robertson household, a quiet excitement buzzed through the air as the last rays of daylight slipped away. Tim Robertson, an imaginative 10-year-old with a perpetual twinkle in his eye, stood by the window, watching as shadows lengthened and danced across the walls. "Windy," he called softly, turning to his younger sister, Windy Jean, who was busy arranging her collection of nightlight crystals on the bedside table. Each crystal shimmered with its own subtle glow, casting a warm, inviting light that filled the room with comfort. "Almost ready, Tim," she replied, her voice carrying a melody as gentle as a summer breeze. Windy had an extraordinary gift. Her voice could transform fear into calm, chaos into harmony. It was a talent she wielded with both grace and purpose. Their loyal companions were already in position. Odin, a wise old owl with feathers that gleamed like silver under the moonlight, perched majestically atop the wardrobe. His eyes were wide and knowing, always on the lookout for trouble. Roxy, a playful fox with fur as red as autumn leaves, lounged at the foot of Windy's bed, her ears twitching at every sound. And then there was Reggie, a small but fiercely brave hedgehog whose spikes bristled with anticipation. As the final light flickered out in the house, a transformation began. The familiar surroundings of their bedroom shimmered and shifted, revealing the Dreamship NEST, a vessel of wonder and magic that carried them through the night on their noble mission. The Nest was unlike any ship in the waking world. Its hull was crafted from the strongest oak and adorned with intricate carvings that told tales of bravery and adventure. The sails, woven from dreams themselves, caught the night winds and billowed majestically above them. A gentle hum resonated through the vessel as it awakened to life, ready to carry its guardians on another journey. Tim reached for his flashlight compass, an ingenious device that glowed with a soft blue light and pointed them towards children in need. Tonight's mission awaited. "Are you ready for another adventure?" Tim asked Windy, his voice a blend of eagerness and responsibility. Windy nodded, her eyes sparkling with determination. "Always. Let's help them see that there's nothing to fear in the dark." With a shared nod of understanding, they climbed aboard the Nest, joined by Odin, Roxy, and Reggie. The ship rose gently from its moorings, guided by unseen currents that wove through the night. "Where to first?" Roxy chirped, her tail flicking with excitement. Tim consulted his compass, watching as it spun and settled on a direction. "To Henry's room," he announced. "It seems he's been hearing whispers from under his bed." Windy smiled reassuringly. "Then let's help him find out what's really there." As they sailed through the star-studded sky, Tim and Windy took a moment to reflect on their mission. They were more than just protectors, they were guides, helping children understand that fear was not an enemy, but a part of life's tapestry that could be woven into something beautiful. "Do you remember when we first started?" Windy asked softly, her gaze fixed on the stars above. Tim nodded. "I was scared of everything back then," he admitted with a chuckle. "But you taught me to look closer, to see what was really there." "And now we get to do that for others," Windy said warmly, "to show them that monsters aren't always what they seem." Their conversation was interrupted as the Nest descended towards Henry's house, its gentle glow illuminating the path ahead. As they prepared to embark on their nightly mission, Tim felt a familiar sense of purpose settle over him. This was their calling, to bring light where there was darkness and understanding where there was fear. The Nest touched down softly outside Henry's window, its presence unnoticed by those who were not attuned to its magic. With a final glance at his companions, Tim led the way inside, ready to face whatever awaited them. The night was young, and their journey had just begun. Chapter 2: Henry's Whispering Shadow. The Dreamship Nest settled gently outside Henry's window, its ethereal glow casting a soft light on the garden below. Tim and Windy exchanged a determined glance, knowing that their mission was as much about discovery as it was about dispelling fear. Odin fluffed his feathers, Roxy stretched with a playful yawn, and Reggie bristled with anticipation, each ready to play their part. As they approached the window, Windy hummed softly, her melody weaving through the night air, calming and reassuring. With a quiet click, Tim unlatched the window, and they slipped inside. careful not to disturb the slumbering household. Henry's room was a haven of childhood wonder. Posters of astronauts and explorers adorned the walls, and shelves brimmed with books promising adventures in far-off lands. Yet, despite its vibrant decoration, a shadow of unease lingered in the corners, particularly beneath Henry's bed. Tim switched on his flashlight compass, its gentle beam illuminating the room. The compass needle quivered slightly before pointing firmly towards the bed. "This is it," he whispered to Windy. Henry lay curled beneath his blanket, his brow furrowed even in sleep. A faint whispering sound drifted from the shadows under his bed, a soft, plaintive murmur that spoke of loneliness rather than malice. "Let's see what we're dealing with," Tim said, kneeling beside the bed. He carefully lifted the edge of the covers and shone his lantern into the depths below. There, huddled amongst dust bunnies and forgotten toys, was a small creature unlike any Tim had seen before. Its eyes were wide with fear, its skin a soft shade of lavender that shimmered like a summer twilight. It shivered slightly as the light touched it, but made no attempt to flee. "Hello there," Tim said gently, lowering his lantern to reduce the glare. "We're not here to hurt you." The creature blinked up at him, its whispering ceasing for a moment. Windy knelt beside Tim, her voice soothing as she spoke. "We're friends and we want to help." The creature hesitated but then nodded slowly. Its voice was barely more than a breath as it spoke. "I didn't mean to scare him, I just wanted someone to talk to." Windy's heart went out to the small monster. "What's your name?" she asked kindly. "Whisper," it replied, its voice carrying a hint of relief now that someone was listening. Tim smiled reassuringly. "Whisper, this is Windy, and I'm Tim. We're here to help you and Henry understand each other." As if sensing their kindness, Whisper crept forward slightly, curiosity overcoming its initial fear. "I didn't know how else to make friends," it admitted softly. Windy nodded understandingly. "Sometimes we all feel alone," she said, "but fear can keep us from reaching out." As they spoke, Henry stirred awake. His eyes widened as he saw Tim and Windy by his bedside, but relaxed when he recognized them as familiar faces from his dreams. "Tim? Windy?" he murmured sleepily. "Hey there, Henry," Tim greeted him warmly. "We've come to help you with those whispers you've been hearing." Henry sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. "I thought it was something scary," he confessed. Windy gestured towards Whisper, who was now peeking out from under the bed. "Meet Whisper," she introduced gently. "They're just as scared as you are." Henry leaned over cautiously, peering at the small creature. "You're not scary at all," he said with growing confidence. Whisper managed a shy smile. "I've never had a friend before." Tim watched as Henry's initial fear melted away into empathy. "I could be your friend," Henry offered tentatively. Windy's heart swelled with pride as she watched the bond form between boy and monster. She knew that moments like these were at the heart of their mission, transforming fear into understanding. Roxy patted over, her tail wagging in approval. "Looks like you've got yourself a new friend, Henry," she chirped brightly. Odin nodded sagely from his perch on the windowsill. "Friendship often begins where fear ends," he observed wisely. As Henry and Whisper chatted softly, Tim and Windy exchanged a satisfied glance. Their work here was done. Another child had learned that what lurked in the shadows was not always something to be feared, but something to be understood. With a final nod of encouragement to Henry and Whisper, they prepared to depart. Whisper looked up at them gratefully. "Thank you," it whispered sincerely. "Remember," Windy said as they climbed back through the window, "fear is just a story waiting to be rewritten." With one last wave to Henry and Whisper, the Guardians returned to the nest. As they soared into the night sky once more, Tim felt a deep sense of fulfillment settle within him. Their journey had begun anew, and with every child they helped, the world became just a little bit brighter. The stars twinkled above them like old friends as they set course for their next destination, ready to transform more fears into friendships and whispers into laughter. And so they sailed on through the night, guided by courage and compassion, forever the guardians of dreams and defenders against darkness. Chapter 3, Amira and the Symphony of Storms. The Dreamship NEST glided silently through the night's embrace, a beacon of warmth and light against the vast tapestry of stars. Tim and Windy stood at the helm, their eyes set on the horizon as they navigated towards their next destination. The air was crisp and cool, carrying with it the distant rumble of thunder that signaled their arrival at Amira's room. "Sounds like a storm is brewing," Roxy remarked, her ears perking up at the rhythmic crackle of lightning in the distance. Tim nodded, consulting his flashlight compass, which now pointed decisively towards a quaint house nestled on the edge of town. "Amira's been having trouble sleeping because of it," he explained. "We need to help her find peace amidst the chaos." Windy hummed softly, her voice threading through the gentle hum of the nest. "Music can be found in anything, even in the storm," she mused, her eyes reflecting the flicker of lightning. "We just need to help her hear it." As the nest descended towards Amira's window, Odin swooped gracefully from his perch, landing beside them with a dignified flap of his wings. "A storm is merely nature's speaking," he said wisely. "Perhaps we can teach her to listen." With a soft thud, the nest settled beside Amira's window, its presence unnoticed by those not attuned to its magic. Tim and Windy exchanged a confident nod before slipping inside, followed closely by their loyal companions. Amira's room was filled with vibrant colors and whimsical patterns, a testament to her vivid imagination. Stuffed animals sat in neat rows, watching over their slumbering owner with button eyes. Yet, despite the room's cheerful decor, a palpable tension lingered in the air, mirrored in Amira's restless form as she tossed and turned beneath her covers. The storm outside raged on, its symphony of sounds filling the room with an unsettling crescendo. Windy moved to Amira's bedside, her presence as calming as a lullaby. "Amira," she called gently, her voice weaving through the thunder like a soothing melody. Amira stirred, blinking sleepily at the figures gathered around her bed. "Windy? Tim?" she mumbled, recognizing them from dreams that felt more real than reality itself. "That's right," Tim replied with a warm smile. "We've come to help you with the storm." Amira sat up slowly, clutching her blanket tightly. "It's so loud," she admitted, her voice tinged with fear. "I can't sleep when it's like this." Windy nodded understandingly. "It can be scary when we don't understand something," she agreed. "But sometimes, if we listen closely, we can hear something beautiful." Roxy padded over to Amira's side, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Have you ever tried to listen to a storm like it's music?" she asked playfully. Amira shook her head, her expression skeptical but intrigued. "How can something so loud be music?" Windy smiled, gesturing towards the window where rain pattered against the glass in a steady rhythm. "Close your eyes for a moment," she instructed gently. Amira hesitated but then complied, squeezing her eyes shut as she focused on Windy's voice. Windy began to hum softly, her melody blending seamlessly with the storm's cacophony. The thunder rumbled like deep bass notes, while the wind howled in haunting harmonies. "Listen to how each sound has its own part," Windy continued softly. "The rain is like a gentle drumbeat, the wind sings its own song." Tim watched as Amira's tense posture gradually relaxed, her breathing evening out as she allowed herself to be swept away by the storm's symphony. It's not so scary," Amira whispered after a moment, wonder coloring her voice. Odin nodded approvingly from his perch on the windowsill. "Every sound tells a story," he said wisely. "Once we learn to listen, we can hear what nature is trying to say." Roxy wagged her tail in agreement. "And storms are just nature's way of playing its grandest concerts." Amira opened her eyes slowly, a newfound sense of calm settling over her features. "I never thought of it that way," she admitted with a small smile. Tim grinned at his sister, pride swelling within him as he watched Amira's fear transform into fascination. It was moments like these that reminded him why their mission was so important. Showing children that there was beauty even in what seemed frightening. "Thank you," Amira said sincerely, looking at each of them in turn. "I think I can sleep now." Windy gave her a reassuring pat on the hand. "Remember, whenever you're scared, try listening for the music," she advised gently. As Amira snuggled back under her covers, Tim and Windy prepared to leave, their hearts lightened by another successful mission. "Sleep well, Amira," Tim whispered as they slipped back out through the window. With one last wave to their young friend, they returned to the nest. As they soared back into the night sky, Tim felt a deep sense of fulfillment settle within him once more. Their journey was far from over, but with each child they helped, they knew they were making the world just a little bit brighter. The storm continued to rage outside, but within the Dreamship nest, All was calm and peaceful as they set course for their next destination, ready to transform more fears into understanding and chaos into harmony. And so they sailed on through the night, guided by courage and compassion, forever the guardians of dreams and defenders against darkness. Chapter 4. Lucas and the Laughter-Lost Shadow. The Dreamship NEST sailed through the silver-streaked sky, its sails catching the gentle whispers of the night wind. Tim and Windy stood side by side at the helm, their eyes scanning the horizon for the next child in need. The air was crisp with possibility, each star a guiding light on their journey. "Where to next?" Roxy asked, her tail flicking with a mix of curiosity and excitement. Tim consulted his flashlight compass, watching as it spun and settled in a new direction. "Lucas," he announced, his voice carrying an undercurrent of intrigue. "It seems he's lost something very important." Windy raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Lost something? What could that be?" Odin, perched nearby with an air of quiet wisdom, ruffled his feathers thoughtfully. "Sometimes what we lose is not a thing but a part of ourselves," he mused. Reggie, ever the optimist despite his small size, piped up with enthusiasm. "Then it's our job to help him find it." As the nest descended towards Lucas's house, nestled in a sleepy neighborhood lined with shadow-draped trees, Windy considered Odin's words. What part of himself could Lucas have lost? With a soft landing outside Lucas's window, the Guardians prepared to embark on their next mission. They slipped inside with practiced ease, careful not to disturb the household slumber. Lucas's room was a vibrant mess of toys and books, each corner filled with evidence of an active imagination. Posters of superheroes adorned the walls, their capes frozen mid-flutter in imaginary winds. Yet amid this colorful chaos, something felt amiss. Tim's flashlight compass pulsed gently in his hand, leading them towards a shadowy corner of the room where darkness seemed to pool unnaturally. "Lucas," Windy called softly, her voice a balm against the night. The boy stirred beneath his covers, blinking sleepily at the familiar faces gathered around him. "Tim? Windy?" he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. "That's right," Tim replied with a reassuring smile. "We've come to help you find what's missing." Lucas sat up slowly, his expression shifting from confusion to realization. "It's my shadow," he admitted, his voice tinged with frustration. "I laughed so hard yesterday that it just slipped away." Windy exchanged a glance with Tim, understanding dawning on her. "Laughter can sometimes separate us from parts of ourselves," she said gently, "but that just means we need to bring them back together." Roxy bounded over to the shadowy corner, her keen eyes spotting movement within the darkness. "There it is," she declared triumphantly. The shadow was indeed there, cowering in the corner as if afraid to return to its owner. It flickered uncertainly, its edges wavering like mist caught in a breeze. Odin fluttered down from his perch, landing gracefully beside Roxy. "Shadows are reflections of our true selves," he said wisely. "They need as much care and understanding as we do." Lucas watched his shadow with a mix of apprehension and longing. "How do I get it back?" he asked hesitantly. Windy knelt beside him, her voice filled with warmth and encouragement. "By embracing it," she explained, "even when it seems different or scary." Tim nodded in agreement, stepping forward with an idea forming in his mind. "Maybe we can play a game," he suggested brightly. "Something fun to remind your shadow that it's okay to come back." Reggie scampered forward eagerly, his tiny paws ready for action. "Games are great for bringing people together," he chirped. With a shared nod of agreement, they set about turning Lucas's room into a playground of light and laughter. Roxy darted around the room, casting playful shadows on the walls that danced in time with her movements. Tim switched on a small lamp, its warm glow creating a stage for their impromptu shadow theater. "Come on, Lucas," Windy encouraged, taking his hand and leading him into the center of the room. At first hesitant, Lucas soon found himself caught up in the joy of their game. He laughed freely as Roxy's antics grew more elaborate, each chuckle resonating with a magic that reached into the corners of the room. Slowly but surely, Lucas's shadow began to inch closer. Drawn by the warmth and laughter that filled the space, it flickered hesitantly before finally merging back with Lucas in a seamless reunion. "I did it!" Lucas exclaimed joyfully, looking down at his feet where his shadow now stood firmly attached once more. Windy beamed at him with pride. "You did," she agreed warmly. "And remember, Your shadow is always a part of you, even when it seems far away. Lucas nodded thoughtfully. Understanding blossomed within him like a sunrise dispelling darkness. Thanks for helping me find it again, he said sincerely. Odin nodded approvingly from his perch on Lucas's bedpost. Every part of us has its place, he said sagely. Even our shadows. With their mission complete and another child helped along their journey of self-discovery, Tim and Wendy prepared to depart once more. Good night, Lucas, Tim said softly as they slipped back out through the window. Good night, Lucas called after them cheerfully, waving as they disappeared into the night. As the Dreamship NEST soared back into the sky, Tim felt a deep sense of fulfillment settle within him once more. Their journey continued, each child they helped adding another star to their constellation of kindness and courage. The night stretched out before them like an endless canvas, waiting to be painted with dreams and adventures yet to come. And so they sailed on through the night, forever guardians of dreams and defenders against darkness, ready for whatever challenges awaited them next on their mission to bring light where there was once only shadow. Chapter 5. The Monster Council's Dilemma. The Dreamship NEST sailed through the starlit sky, its sails catching the gentle winds of the night as it navigated towards a new adventure. Tim and Wendy stood at the helm, their eyes scanning the horizon for the next child or creature in need. The air was crisp, filled with the promise of discovery and the thrill of the unknown. We're headed somewhere different tonight, Tim announced, consulting his flashlight compass, which glowed with a soft blue light that pulsed in a steady rhythm. Wendy raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the unusual behavior of the compass. Where to? She asked, her voice carrying a melodic curiosity. Tim held up the compass for all to see. It's pointing us towards the Monster Council, he replied, a note of excitement in his voice. It seems they need our help. Odin, perched on a nearby railing with an air of quiet wisdom, ruffled his feathers thoughtfully. The Monster Council? They've always been shy creatures, he mused. I wonder what troubles them. Roxy's ears perked up at the mention of the council. Maybe they're having a party and forgot how to have fun, she suggested playfully. Reggie, ever the optimist, despite his small size, piped up eagerly. Whatever it is, we'll help them figure it out. As the nest descended towards the hidden clearing where the Monster Council met, Wendy considered Odin's words. The council was known for their timid nature, tasked with protecting children from nighttime fears, but often too fearful themselves to be effective. With a gentle thud, the nest landed softly in the clearing, its presence unnoticed by those not attuned to its magic. Tim and Wendy exchanged a determined glance before stepping off the ship, followed closely by their loyal companions. The clearing was bathed in moonlight, casting long shadows that danced across the ground. In the center stood a circle of creatures, each more curious and endearing than the last. They were small and timid, their eyes wide with uncertainty as they huddled together. Tim approached them slowly, his voice warm and welcoming. Hello, friends, he greeted them kindly. We're here to help. The creatures shifted nervously, exchanging glances before one of them stepped forward hesitantly. It was a small creature with fur that shimmered like stardust and eyes that reflected the moon's glow. Welcome, it said softly, its voice barely more than a whisper. We are the Monster Council, and we have a problem. Wendy knelt beside the creature, her presence as calming as a lullaby. What seems to be the trouble? She asked gently. The creature hesitated, looking around at its fellow council members for support. We want to protect children from their fears, it explained slowly. But we're afraid ourselves, Roxy nodded understandingly. Being brave isn't about not being scared, she said wisely. It's about doing what's right, even when you are. Tim smiled encouragingly at the creatures. Courage can come from companionship and purpose, he said confidently. You're not alone in this. Reggie scampered forward with enthusiasm. We're here to help you find your courage, he chirped brightly. The creature's eyes widened slightly at their words, hope flickering within them like a candle flame. But how? It asked uncertainly. Wendy exchanged a glance with Tim before turning back to the council. By working together, she explained, by supporting each other and remembering why you wanted to protect children in the first place. Odin nodded sagely from his perch on Wendy's shoulder. Fear can be powerful, he observed wisely, but so can friendship and determination. As they spoke, Tim noticed the creatures beginning to relax, their fear slowly giving way to curiosity and resolve. Perhaps we could practice together, Tim suggested thoughtfully. Face some of those fears as a team. The council exchanged glances again before nodding in agreement. Yes, one of them said softly but firmly. We want to try. With renewed determination, Tim and Wendy led the council through exercises designed to build confidence and trust, from role-playing scenarios where they confronted imaginary fears to games that encouraged teamwork and communication. Roxy darted around playfully, demonstrating how even small acts of bravery could have a big impact. Reggie cheered them on with boundless enthusiasm, his optimism infectious. As they worked together under the moonlit sky, Tim felt pride swell within him as he watched the council grow more confident in their abilities, each small success reinforcing their belief in themselves. You see, Wendy said warmly as they concluded their session, you have everything you need within you. The creatures looked at each other with newfound confidence. No longer just timid guardians, but potential heroes ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Thank you, their leader said sincerely as they gathered around Tim and Wendy once more. We didn't know we had such strength within us. Tim beamed at them with pride, another successful mission completed thanks to courage found through community and support. Our journey together has only just begun, Wendy reminded them gently as they prepared to depart once more. With one last wave goodbye to their newfound friends in the Monster Council, Tim led his team back aboard the Dreamship NEST. Hearts lightened by another successful mission accomplished through courage, found through community and support. As they soared back into the night sky once more, guided by courage and compassion, Tim knew that their work was far from over. For every child helped along their journey added another star to their constellation of kindness and courage, and so they sailed on through night after night. Forever guardians of dreams and defenders against darkness, ready for whatever challenges awaited them next on their mission to bring light where there was once only shadow. Chapter 6. The Whisperwood Beast's Message. The Dreamship NEST sailed through the velvet night, its sails shimmering like woven starlight as it drifted towards its next destination. Tim and Wendy stood at the helm, their eyes alight with the thrill of new adventures waiting to unfold. The air was charged with anticipation, a gentle breeze carrying whispers of the unknown. Where are we headed tonight? Roxy asked, her tail flicking with eagerness as she peered over Tim's shoulder at the flashlight compass. Tim held the compass steady, watching as its needle spun erratically before settling in a direction. We're being summoned to the Dreaming Tree, he announced, his voice tinged with urgency. Twill the Night Owl has sent us an urgent message. Wendy furrowed her brow in concern. The Dreaming Tree is the heart of imagination, she mused aloud, her voice carrying a note of worry. If something's wrong there, it could affect all the children we've helped. Odin, perched nearby with his usual air of wisdom, nodded gravely. The Dreaming Tree nourishes the dreams of every child, he explained. We must ensure its safety. Reggie, ever the brave little hedgehog, puffed up his spikes with determination. Then we have to help, he declared resolutely. As the nest descended towards the enchanted glade where the Dreaming Tree stood, its branches stretching towards the heavens like a web of possibilities, Tim felt a familiar sense of purpose settle over him. The glade was bathed in an ethereal glow, moonlight filtering through the canopy to create a tapestry of light and shadow on the ground. In the center stood the Dreaming Tree, its trunk wide and ancient, with bark that shimmered like silver under the stars. Twill the Night Owl awaited them on a low-hanging branch, his feathers ruffled with anxiety. Thank goodness you've come, he hooted as they approached. There's trouble brewing. Tim stepped forward, his expression serious yet reassuring. What seems to be the problem, Twill? The owl blinked his wise eyes slowly before responding. The Whisperwood beasts have brought news of an unknown threat, he explained. Children's dreams are fading, dimmed by distractions from their waking lives. Wendy exchanged a concerned glance with Tim. Distractions? She repeated thoughtfully. What could be causing this? Twill gestured with one wing towards Elder Moontuft, a venerable creature whose presence exuded calm authority. The elder stepped forward, his fur bristling slightly as he spoke. Children are losing their connection to imagination, he explained solemnly. Their minds are clouded by worries and fears from their everyday world. Tim nodded, understanding dawning within him like a sunrise dispelling darkness. We need to find a way to rekindle their imaginations, he said decisively. Windy turned to Elder Moontuft with determination shining in her eyes. How can we help? She asked earnestly. The elder considered her question for a moment before replying. We must remind them of the wonder and magic that exists beyond their immediate concerns, he advised wisely. A spark of creativity can reignite even the dimmest of dreams. Roxy bounded forward eagerly, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. We can do that, she chirped confidently. Reggie nodded vigorously in agreement. Let's show them how to dream again. With renewed purpose, Tim and Windy set about devising a plan to restore the light of imagination to children's dreams. They enlisted the help of the Whisperwood beasts, gentle creatures who thrived on creativity and inspiration, to spread their message far and wide. Together they crafted dream catchers woven from stardust and moonbeams, each one imbued with a touch of magic, designed to capture worries and transform them into dreams. As they worked under the watchful gaze of the dreaming tree, Windy hummed softly, her melody weaving through the night air like a gentle lullaby that soothed restless hearts and minds alike. Remember, she murmured as they hung each dreamcatcher from the tree's branches, imagination is limitless when we allow ourselves to see beyond what's in front of us. Tim watched as their efforts began to take effect, twinkling lights appearing within each dreamcatcher as if capturing fragments of dreams ready to be nurtured back into life. The Whisperwood beasts moved gracefully among them, their presence both calming and invigorating as they shared stories and songs that inspired new ideas and possibilities. As dawn approached on golden wings, casting warm rays across the glade, Tim felt satisfaction swell within him once more. Their mission had been successful, another challenge overcome through courage found in community and support. With one last nod goodbye to their newfound friends at the Dreaming Tree, now glowing brighter than ever before, Tim led his team back aboard the Dreamship, Nest hearts lightened by another mission, accomplished through creativity, kindled anew. And so they soared into morning skies, ready for whatever challenges awaited them next on their journey. Forever guardians of dreams and defenders against darkness, bringing light where there was once only shadow. Chapter 7, Confronting the Flickerer. The Dreamship NEST sailed through the pre-dawn sky, its sails shimmering with a gentle luminescence that mirrored the first hints of dawn on the horizon. Tim and Windy stood at the helm, their hearts buoyed by the success of their recent mission at the Dreaming Tree. Yet a new challenge loomed ahead, one that whispered of shadows deeper than night. There's something different about tonight, Windy remarked, her voice barely above a whisper as if speaking too loudly might disturb the delicate balance of the universe. Tim nodded, his grip tightening on the flashlight compass, which now pulsed with an urgent, flickering light. We're being drawn to something. Or someone, he said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Odin, perched with an aura of quiet wisdom, ruffled his feathers, as if sensing the gravity of their next encounter. The Flickerer, he intoned softly, an elusive presence that even the stars fear to mention. Roxy's ears perked up, her usual playfulness tempered by a rare seriousness. What does the Flickerer want? She asked, her tail stilling in anticipation. Reggie, ever the brave-hearted hedgehog despite his diminutive size, puffed up with determination. Whatever it is, we'll face it together, he declared resolutely. As the nest descended towards a shadowed glade far from the comforting glow of the Dreaming Tree, a chill settled over them. Not from the cold, but from the anticipation of facing an unknown adversary. The glade was eerily silent, its darkness profound and almost tangible. In its center stood the Flickerer, a figure cloaked in shifting shadows that seemed to absorb the very light around it. Its presence was both unsettling and mesmerizing, like a half-remembered nightmare that lingered on the edge of consciousness. Tim took a deep breath, stepping forward with Windy beside him. We've come to talk, he called out, his voice steady despite the tremor in his heart. The Flickerer turned slowly, its form indistinct yet somehow familiar. Talk? It echoed in a voice that was both a whisper and a roar. What is there to discuss when all I seek is peace? Windy met its gaze without flinching, her eyes filled with compassion rather than fear. Peace cannot be found by extinguishing light, she said gently. Light and shadow must coexist for balance. The flickerer hesitated, its form flickering uncertainly as if caught between worlds. I am tired of fear, it confessed, its voice laced with an ancient weariness. Fear has been my constant companion. Tim felt a pang of understanding resonate within him. Fear is not an enemy, he replied softly. It's a guide, a story waiting to be understood. The flickerer shifted slightly, its shadows rippling like a dark sea caught in a storm. I have seen too much suffering born from fear, it said quietly. I thought by removing it, I could bring solace. Windy stepped closer, her presence like a balm against the tension in the air. But without fear, there can be no courage, she explained gently, no opportunity to grow or learn. Roxy padded forward cautiously, her eyes reflecting the flicker of curiosity beneath her usual playfulness. Fear can lead to discovery, she added brightly, like finding hidden treasures in places you least expect. Reggie nodded vigorously in agreement. And we're here to help you see that, he chirped enthusiastically. The flickerer seemed to waver at their words, its form becoming less defined as if struggling against its own nature. I do not wish to harm, it admitted haltingly. I only sought to protect. Tim felt hope spark within him, like a flame kindled in darkness. Then let us help you find another way, he offered sincerely, a way where light and shadow work together. Windy began to hum softly, her melody weaving through the glade like a gentle breeze that stirred the leaves and warmed the air. Her song was one of acceptance and unity, a lullaby for weary souls seeking solace. As her voice filled the space between them, the flickerer's form began to change, its shadows softening until they were no longer menacing, but merely another shade of night. I see now, the flickerer murmured, its voice no longer harsh, but tinged with wonderment. Fear is not an enemy, but an ally misunderstood. Tim smiled warmly at their newfound understanding, another victory won through empathy and insight rather than conflict. Thank you for helping me see, the flickerer said sincerely as it began to fade back into the shadows from whence it came. Remember, Windy advised gently before it disappeared completely, balance comes from embracing both light and dark, from understanding rather than fear. With one last nod goodbye to their enigmatic adversary turned ally, Tim led his team back aboard the Dreamship NEST, hearts lightened by another successful mission accomplished through compassion and courage. As they soared back into morning skies, ready for whatever challenges awaited them next on their journey. Forever guardians of dreams and defenders against darkness. Bringing light where there was once only shadow. Their mission continued. Each child helped along their journey, adding another star to their constellation of kindness and courage, and so they sailed on through night after night, forever ready for whatever challenges awaited them next on their mission to bring light where there was once only shadow. Chapter 8. A New Dawn for Dreamers. The Dreamship NEST glided through the sky, its sails catching the first hints of dawn as the horizon began to glow with the promise of a new day. Tim and Windy stood at the helm, their hearts filled with a sense of fulfillment and hope after their encounter with the flickerer. The air was crisp and refreshing, carrying with it the whispers of dreams rekindled. That was quite an adventure, Roxy remarked, her tail swaying contentedly as she gazed at the softening night sky. Tim nodded, his eyes reflecting the gentle light of the approaching dawn. We've faced many challenges, but this one felt different, he admitted. The flickerer wasn't just an enemy. It was a part of all of us. Windy leaned against the ship's railing, her expression thoughtful yet serene. Understanding fear instead of fighting it, she mused aloud. That's a lesson we can all learn from. Odin, perched nearby with his usual air of wisdom, nodded sagely. Indeed, balance is achieved not by denying parts of ourselves, but by embracing them, he said wisely. Reggie, ever the optimistic hedgehog, puffed up with satisfaction. And now that we've helped the flickerer see that, maybe our work here is done. As the nest sailed through the gently brightening sky, Tim felt a warmth spread through him, a reminder of all the children they had helped, each one leaving a mark on his heart. The dreaming tree was safe, and its light would continue to nourish imagination and creativity in children everywhere. "We've restored the light to the dreaming tree," Tim said, turning to Windy with a smile. "But more importantly, we've reminded ourselves and others that fear isn't something to be extinguished, but embraced." Windy returned his smile, her eyes sparkling with pride. "Every child we've helped has been a part of that journey," she agreed. "And maybe even the flickerer will find peace and understanding." As dawn broke fully over the horizon, bathing the world in golden light, the nest began its descent back towards the Robertson household. The familiar surroundings of their bedroom shimmered into view as they approached, the magic of the night slowly giving way to the reality of day. With a gentle thud, the Dreamship NEST settled back into its resting place, transforming seamlessly back into Tim and Windy's cozy bedroom. The nightlights on Windy's table flickered warmly, casting soft shadows that danced across the walls. Tim turned to his sister and their loyal companions, Odin, Roxy, and Reggie, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for their shared adventures. "We did it," he said softly, his voice filled with emotion. "We protected the dreaming tree and showed that fear can be a friend." Windy nodded, her expression serene and content. "And now we can rest," she replied gently, knowing that we've made a difference. Odin fluttered to his perch atop the wardrobe, settling down with a satisfied rustle of feathers. Roxy curled up at the foot of Windy's bed, her eyes half closed in contentment. Reggie nestled into his cozy nook, his spikes relaxed and peaceful. As Tim and Windy climbed into their beds, they exchanged a final glance, a silent promise that their adventures would continue as long as there were dreams to protect and fears to understand. "The night may end," Windy murmured sleepily as she snuggled under her covers, "but our mission never truly does." Tim smiled at her words, feeling a sense of peace settle over him like a warm blanket. "True," he agreed softly, "because every dawn is a new beginning." As they drifted off to sleep, lulled by the comforting sounds of their home and the gentle hum of imagination still lingering in the air, Tim and Windy knew that they would always be ready to sail once more into the night, forever guardians of dreams and defenders against darkness. And so they slept, hearts full and spirits lightened by another successful mission accomplished through courage and compassion, ready for whatever challenges awaited them next on their journey, forever ready to bring light where there was once only shadow. Their constellation of kindness and courage growing brighter with each child helped along their way. And so they dreamed on through night after night, forever ready for whatever adventures awaited them next on their mission to bring light where there was once only shadow.